Hey friends, tonight we begin with the quiet struggle and gentle persistence of Victorian families, the ones who made their homes in the narrowest alleys and smallest rooms, beneath chimneys of soot and skies of unbroken fog. If you're new here, welcome to this soft corner of time. Dim your lights, pull the blanket a little closer, and maybe light a small candle beside you. This space is here to bring calm, rest, and a little historical company as you drift off. If it soothes you, feel free to like and subscribe, but only if it brings you genuine peace. And if you feel like sharing, tell me in the comments, where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it for you? Now, let's take a long, slow breath together and slip gently back into the past. Before the sun dared break through the thick London fog, the slums were already breathing. It was not the golden light of some cheerful morning that woke the city's poor, but the quiet stirrings of discomfort. The shift of a child rolling over on a straw-stuffed mattress, the click of a rat's claws on a wooden floorboard, the low moan of wind through cracked panes and broken chimney vents. The air was heavy with a scent that defied separation: coal smoke, mildew, human closeness, and the faint tang of something soured overnight. And yet, this was morning. In one narrow room, beneath a flaking plaster ceiling, lay a family of 7. They were folded around each other like spoons in a drawer. The youngest, barely 2, had wormed his way under his mother's thin shawl during the night, pressed close against her chest. The father, gaunt and prematurely stooped from years of carting goods through the muck, had one arm draped protectively over the bundle of limbs that were his children. His sleep was not deep. None of theirs was. They slept like people keeping watch. A small coal stove sat dormant in the corner, its belly cold. Lighting it meant using up fuel they did not have yet, and until someone brought in a half-penny's worth of coal, they would endure the chill. The walls were damp to the touch. In the silence, if you listened hard, you could hear the faint hiss of damp brick slowly giving up the night's condensation. Beyond the window, if one could call it that, it was more a gap boarded in soot-streaked glass. The alley stirred to life. Someone down the way coughed once, then again. It was a sound with history, not sharp but worn. One of those deep, dragging coughs that came from months or years of breathing in damp and dust. In the floor below, a woman began to murmur a hymn, her voice thin but certain. It was not sung for joy or even for God. It was sung, like breathing, because she always had. There was no dramatic start to the day, no clanging bells or cries of markets opening. The slum woke slowly, like a damp sponge pressed by unseen hands. One by one, lids fluttered open, legs unfolded. A foot touched a freezing floorboard. Groans, not of pain but of routine, murmured into the air. A girl of 9 lit a stub of candle by touch, her small fingers remembering the wick's shape from nights before. Her name was Elsie, and she slept beside 2 younger brothers. With the dim glow dancing on the wall, she pulled a rough woolen wrap over her shoulders and stood. No shoes, just thick socks, stiff with wear. She crossed the room, careful not to wake the others, and checked the enamel tin her mother had placed by the window the night before. A skim of water had gathered. Condensation, enough, maybe, for a rinse of the face. Across the way, a boy named Peter sat up in his family's corner room. He stretched and pulled his knees to his chest, trying to warm them with his arms. Their chimney had collapsed 2 winters prior, and the landlord had nailed a bit of sailcloth over the opening. It flapped now in the breeze, letting in cold and sound and an occasional trickle of soot. Peter didn't mind. It was morning, and the coppers he'd earned yesterday might buy bread. Down below, in the shared courtyard, a door creaked open. Mrs. Dunny, wrapped in a thick shawl and dragging an old scuttle behind her, emerged to check on the ash bins. She glanced upward, nodding toward a curtain fluttering in one of the 3rd-story windows. The nod wasn't answered, but that didn't matter. It was acknowledgement enough. From a distance, the alley didn't seem like a place people lived. It looked more like something forgotten, bricked in by taller buildings, hemmed in by soot and shadow. But inside, it held life in layers. Each door opened to a story. Behind each was a chamber, a corner, a cubby that held breath and warmth and memory. They were poor, but they were alive. A clock somewhere struck 6. Not that anyone in the alley owned such a clock. The chime floated in from a church tower a dozen streets away, muted by fog and the press of close buildings. Still, it was enough. The day had begun. One by one, chamber pots were emptied into the drains that ran between cobbles. The water from the night before, saved in chipped basins and rusty kettles, was doled out carefully, a splash to wipe a face, a drop for tea if any leaves remained. Fingers rubbed steam from cracked window panes, and small eyes peered out onto the waking city. Outside, the city stirred in layers. A cart rumbled past, wheels grating against stone, the horse's hooves echoing through the fog. Somewhere, a baby cried. A door slammed too loudly, and a child somewhere upstairs began to cry. The sounds folded together until they were background, a slow and muffled heartbeat of the neighborhood. Elsie helped her mother by rinsing out a cloth and scrubbing the hearth. Their coal pile was gone, but the ashes from yesterday could be stirred into a bit of heat. It wasn't much, but it could warm the hands. Her mother unwrapped a bit of cloth from the shelf above the stove. A crust of bread, 2 if they were lucky. It was yesterday's, or perhaps older. They tore it into pieces and chewed slowly. Morning in the slums did not mean cleanliness or breakfast as others knew it. It meant readiness. It meant being upright, having your boots on, and knowing where you'd look for work, or for food. By 6:30, the alleys were fuller. Children darted between doorways, carrying buckets, wrapped in coats too large. A woman stood outside a basement opening, calling down to see if the water pump was running. A boy stood in the corner, clutching a sack, eyes darting for the rag and bone man. 2 men with shovels over their shoulders walked past without speaking. And the fog hung over it all, not the romantic kind, but the sour, clinging kind that settled into collars and coughed into lungs. But still, life moved. Fires caught slowly. The smell of smoke returned. A pan hissed somewhere with lard or broth or water. It was hard to tell. And slowly, as though by instinct, the slum began its day. Not all days were dramatic in the Victorian city. Most were like this, damp, deliberate, quietly determined. And when you listened, when you stood still, you could hear how much effort went into simply waking up. The dawn in the slums was not a moment. It was an unfolding, a quiet unfurling of survival, soaked in fog and memory. And just as that first waking hour fades into the next, so too will we drift forward, from this slow morning fog, deeper into the lives behind these bricks and boards. So, stay close, keep the blanket tucked, and let's continue quietly onward. The sounds outside grow louder now, but the spirit inside these walls remains hushed. Somewhere, a kettle rattles to life. Somewhere else, a mother hums softly as she pins up her skirt. A dozen different households begin their rituals, not because they expect comfort, but because life must continue. It always does. In one building, a tenant carefully spreads grease over the soles of his boots, hoping to stretch another day from them. In another, a teenage girl braids her sister's hair, their breath rising like mist in the unheated air. These are not grand beginnings. They are the soft persistence of people who have little, making it last. Outside again, the alley narrows toward the mews where horses are being prepared. The farrier's assistant, a boy no older than 12, scrapes muck from a wheelbarrow and hums a tune passed down by his grandfather. He's never heard it from a piano or a printed page. Only his mother's voice, one winter morning, long ago. Along the gutters, Trickles of wastewater glide over uneven stone. At intervals, pale feet splash through them, barefoot children on errands, used to the sting. And yet even here, in the muck and mist, there is rhythm, a kind of broken poetry to it all. One girl carries a pail to the corner, where a woman known as Auntie May keeps a borrowed kettle boiling. For 2 pennies, you can steep the same tea leaves 3 times. The girl hands over a biscuit in trade, and they sit in silence, warming their hands. Further down the alley, 2 men lean against a soot-streaked wall, heads bowed over a newspaper that neither can read. It's passed from hand to hand each morning, not for its contents, but for its use. Lining boots, wrapping food, stuffing windows. Still, they pretend to read, as if words alone might ward off another hopeless day. Somewhere above, a baby begins to cry. It is not a wail of panic, just the slow, reedy fuss of waking hunger. The mother sighs and lifts the child with the softness of someone who has done this 10,000 times. No clock is needed. Her body knows the rhythm. But by now, the alley is alive in full. There is motion, not noise. Purposeful rustling, deliberate shuffling, quiet voices reminding children not to dawdle. Men and women leave in small groups toward docks, brickyards, or laundry sheds. A dog barks twice, then falls silent. Someone tries to whistle and fails halfway through. Above it all, chimney smoke begins to rise. Thin, reluctant threads of gray unraveling into the fog. The slums may be tucked away from the heart of the city, but their breath still rises with the morning air. And so the slum is fully awake now. Not bright-eyed, not eager, but awake and quietly alive. Not because it's a new day, but because it is one more. And in that gentle, stubborn act of beginning, there is something nearly holy. As we leave this quiet hour behind, we'll carry the stillness with us, through the corridors and corners of the city's forgotten families. We'll move with them now, from these first moments of waking, into what the rest of the day will hold. So settle in. We're just getting started. Hello again, friend. If you've drifted off already, that's perfectly all right. But if you're still with me, let's continue our gentle walk through time. Tonight, we move deeper into the buildings we glimpsed from the outside, into the rooms that held not just people, but whole lives stacked together. Slum rooms weren't just spaces to sleep. They were kitchens, workshops, nurseries, sick beds, and sanctuaries. A single room might cradle 3 generations and still make room for a lodger. And somehow, everyone found a place. So fluff your pillow, ease into the softness, and listen as the world of walls and floorboards unfolds around you. Let's open a door now, quietly, without knocking, and slip inside a shared room. It's early still. The light is gray, the kind that comes before sunrise when you can't tell if it's fog or just the world not fully awake. In a tenement off Field Lane, the walls are thin as paper, and the beams above have begun to bow. This particular room holds 9 people, maybe 10, depending on whether the grandfather has come back from the infirmary. There are no beds, not really, just straw, crates, and blankets laid out in patterns worn into the boards. At one end, a young woman nurses a baby beneath a shawl, while her sister braids another child's hair. In another corner, a man sharpens a knife against a brick, getting ready for his walk to the docks. Above them, laundry hangs like ghosts. Shirts, stockings, chemises, all gently swaying with the breath of morning wind. The fireplace smolders faintly. Someone poured out the slops. Someone has already been downstairs to trade 3 buttons for a pinch of flour. Every act is quiet, precise, practiced. There's no room for chaos when the room is always full. Somewhere in the ceiling above, a child from the next flat begins to cry. Nobody reacts. The cry blends into the sound of dripping water, of creaking joints, of quiet waking. A rat darts from a crate to the wall and vanishes. Still no one stirs. In this one room, There is more history than in any drawing room on the richer streets. The lines on the faces, the burns on the pots, the threadbare corners of blankets, all tell of winters survived, fevers endured, children lost and born again. It is a fragile miracle, this room, and yet it holds. And now we settle in too. Because this chapter isn't just about the room, it's about what it meant to live one's entire world within 4 cracked walls. So close your eyes if you haven't already, and let's stay a while. A kettle rattles somewhere in the corner, though no one moves to pour. They're waiting, not for the tea, but for the silence to finish what it's saying. This silence is not empty. It carries memories in its folds, the echo of a mother's lullaby, the scrape of a knife on an old door frame, the whisper of something being sewn in secret. The room has no privacy, and yet everyone knows how to make space. Eyes lower when someone needs quiet. Children learn the boundaries between a cough and a cry, between a joke and a prayer. People fold themselves into corners, into gestures, into one another. When light finally filters through the high window, it doesn't announce itself. It seeps in slowly, dust trailing behind it. That pale yellow glow strikes the corner where a grandfather sleeps beneath a coat. He shifts, but doesn't wake. His breath rises faintly, steady. The mother hums under her breath now. Not a song, really, just a loop of comfort she hums into the top of her baby's hair. The others in the room have heard it 100 times and no longer notice. That's how background love works. It's not made to be noticed, just carried. Along the back wall, there's a shelf where things are kept that have no real use anymore. A cracked teacup, a shoe without a mate, a Bible that no one can read but no one will throw away. Objects that belong to the people who once filled this room, or perhaps the memories of them. One child sits by the window, watching the world pass by in silhouettes. She counts them. Man with hat, woman with basket, cart with squeaky wheel, dog. None of them know she is watching. She likes that. She likes the distance, that there is still a world beyond these walls, even if it's only a flickering parade of shadows. And in one corner, the lodger is waking. He's a quiet man with a stitched sleeve and a wooden comb. No one knows quite where he came from, but he pays what he can and keeps to himself. He rises slowly, folds his blanket with reverence, and nods to the mother without speaking. She nods back. That's enough. The lodger takes out a bit of cloth, gray, carefully wrapped, and from it a shaving blade, a crust of bread, and a slice of something pickled. His breakfast. He eats without sound. In this room, sound is currency. You don't spend it unless you must. It's odd to think how much can happen without anyone saying a word. And yet this room, like so many others, hums with unspoken agreements, silent routines, and a language written entirely in glances and gestures. In another corner, 2 children giggle beneath a blanket. They've invented a game involving buttons and invisible armies. Their mother hushes them with a look, but she is smiling too. It's important to let children play, even here, especially here. The man at the hearth finally rises. His name might be John or Albert or something else. Names don't matter so much as what you do when the day begins. He reaches for his boots and shakes the soot from them, one after the other. Then he pats his pockets and pulls out a string with a small metal cross. He holds it to his lips, briefly, then tucks it away. They all begin to rise one by one, not because it is time, but because the room has said it's ready. From the hallway outside, a knock sounds, soft, rhythmless. It's not meant for anyone in particular. It could be a neighbor, or someone begging flour, or a girl running errands for the water pump. No one moves to answer. The knock fades into the floorboards and is forgotten. The morning air has shifted. It's warmer now, though faintly sour with coal smoke. A breeze makes the laundry sway once more. This time, a stocking slips loose and falls from its peg. No one rushes to catch it. It will be picked up later. A small boy wraps twine around a broken handle to repair a drawer. His tongue pokes from the corner of his mouth in concentration. He doesn't speak, but he hums a single note over and over, like a thread running through the quiet. Someone says, "Tea," but it isn't a question. A rustle follows. A cup is passed. No one speaks more than they need to. Words are spare in this place, not because people are unfriendly, but because their meaning is heavier when fewer are spoken. One by one, shoes are slipped on, coats tied with bits of ribbon or string. A shawl is folded around the mother's shoulders as she stands. Her baby is sleeping now, and she carries him in a sling of old linen, not tied over her back. The man with the cross is the first to step out. The door clicks behind him. Then the lodger, who carries a sack with quiet dignity. Then the girls, off to the laundry yard with bundles beneath their arms. The room empties itself gently, like breath exhaled after holding. A few stay behind. The grandmother, seated near the fire. The boy with the drawer. The mother and baby. And for a moment, the room feels vast, but it won't stay that way for long. As soon as the others return, it will fill again with steam, with footsteps, with voices low and full of the day. The blankets will shift, the air will thicken, and someone will ask, not out loud but with a glance, "Have you eaten? Did you find work? Is the baby warm?" This room is not just a space. It's an ecosystem. It breathes, it listens, it remembers. And just like that, as we step back out from behind these worn walls, we carry it with us. The warmth, the weight, the quiet endurance that pressed so many lives into such a narrow frame. We won't linger too far. There are other corners to visit, and more stories waiting in the folds of fog and brick. Let's keep moving, gently. Melly, somewhere down the alley, someone is slicing bread. You can't hear it clearly, only the faint scrape of crust against the blade, and the sharper clack as it lands on the cutting board. It's morning in the slums again, and food is the first question on everyone's mind. In many homes, breakfast isn't breakfast. It's what's left. A heel of bread gone stale 3 days ago. A scoop of oats boiled in water, not milk. The water's a little smoky from the fire, but no one minds. It's warm, and warm matters more than taste. A child dips a crust into broth saved from yesterday's dinner. The broth is little more than cabbage water now, with a film of fat that breaks into golden circles as she swirls it. She doesn't slurp it. She waits, politely, until her father has his first. That's how it's always been. In rooms above shops, behind laundries, below stairwells, families balance their meals on crates and knees. Children eat with their hands or with spoons borrowed from neighbors. A tin plate is passed between three. There's no waste here. Even crumbs are brushed carefully into a jar. To feed pigeons, maybe, or maybe just in case. The smells of the morning are strange companions. Bread and coal smoke, tea and old soap. Stew that's been warming since before dawn, and the ever-present scent of damp wood and human closeness. It's not a bad smell. It's just the smell of the world waking where the walls are thin. Boilers hiss in the basements of tenement yards. Women queue with buckets and bundles, waiting for their turn at the tap. One kettle at a time, one washpan per family. The water is warm, but not clean. Still, it's better than cold, and better than none. Children carry little tins wrapped in scarves, bits of tea, a dab of grease, a twist of sugar. Small trades are made in whispers, a spoonful of lard for a broken comb, a flake of salt for an old button. These exchanges feel ancient, and in a way, they are. At the edge of the boiler yard, someone stirs porridge in a dented pot. Her sleeves are rolled, hair tied back. She adds nothing but water and turns it anyway. Behind her, 2 boys argue over who gets to carry the shovel today. They aren't fighting, not really, just deciding. In places like this, even work is shared. On the windowsills above, bread sits out to dry, not to waste, but to become something else. tomorrow's soup thickener, a future crust for pudding. Everything has its second purpose, and maybe a third. Down the hall, a mother unwraps a parcel. It's not much. A bit of dripping wrapped in cloth, a scrap of meat, some herbs that look like they were begged rather than bought. She sets it all into a pot with reverence. This isn't just food. This is a gesture, a way to say, I want you to be full, even if I can't make it happen. Across the landing, someone knocks on a door and hands in a slice of bread, warm, torn, not sliced. It's handed with no words, no thank you needed. The person who receives it tears it again and gives half to someone else. That's just how it works here. Food travels faster than stories. Kindness keeps to itself. In corners, you'll find the quiet chefs of the slums. Grandmothers and widows with wrists like twine, kneading dough that rises only slightly. They work with weak yeast and weaker flour, but still they bake. They shape each roll by hand and line them on trays so old the handles have worn off. When they rise, even a little, it feels like a triumph. In the boiler yards, sometimes you'll hear a song. Not loud, just enough to keep time while scrubbing. The rhythm of soap on fabric. A child echoes the verse nearby with a stick against a rail. A little music in the steam. Not planned, not rehearsed, but real. Children are sent to the bakers just before closing, not for fresh loaves, those cost too much, but for scraps, burnt ends, crusts, yesterday's unsold rolls. If they're lucky, the baker is kind. If they're not, they wait until he's distracted and slip something from the tray when no one's watching. It's not stealing, exactly. It's survival with manners. When they come home, their mothers unwrap the find like a treasure. They slice it thin, toast it crisp, and call it tea. Bread and tea, and sometimes just tea. A meal made of steam and hope. In back courtyards, families take turns with the communal fire. One kettle boils for many. People bring their tins, each labeled, sometimes with chalk, sometimes just a notch in the handle. It's easy to mix them up, no one minds. A man lowers his bread into a pot, then raises it slowly, letting the liquid drip. It's not soup, not really, but it's warm, and that's what counts. Near a stairwell, someone spills their ration. A tin cup tips. There's a pause. No one laughs. Instead, 3 hands reach down, one with a handkerchief, one with a spoon to scoop what's left, one with half of their own to share. No lecture, no sympathy, just action. The poorest of the poor go to the workhouse kitchens, if they can bear it. A bowl of thick gruel, a square of bread, and silence broken only by coughing. It fills the belly. That's all. It asks for your name and sometimes a piece of your pride. But others, the resilient ones, the ones with networks and small kindnesses, avoid it as long as they can. They string meals from threads, stitch dinners from scraps. They find flavor in bone and patience in peel. One girl has a clay jar on the windowsill. It's where she drops things, a bean, a peel, a seed, a crust too small to eat. Once a week, she empties it into a pot and adds water. Sometimes she calls it soup. Sometimes she just calls it hers. A man down the hall brews his own broth from onion skins and turnip peelings. He adds vinegar and swears by it. He doesn't offer it to others, but if they ask, he shares. Better than nothing, he says. And that's the slogan of every kitchen in the slums. Mealtime isn't scheduled. It happens when someone has something. Sometimes it's all at once. Smells pouring through halls and stairwells like smoke. Sometimes it's staggered. A crust now, a cup later, a bite in the middle of the night when the stomach grumbles loudest. The children know the signals. A rustle of newspaper, a ladle scraping bottom, the sharp crack of crust splitting. They come running, not with expectation, but with curiosity. Is there food? Is there enough? Is there something to share? Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't, but someone always tries. And when the light begins to fade again, and the steam settles into the corners of each home, people lie down not with full bellies, but with the knowledge that they got through one more day. A meal or part of one. A spoon passed hand to hand, a flavor remembered, a bread crust saved, and a fire that boiled more than just water. It warmed a room full of breath and quiet endurance. And so we leave them now, still seated on crates and boxes, their backs against the wall, sipping slowly from tin mugs and watching the world shift from gray to gold and back again. They have eaten what they could, and now, like every soul worn thin by hunger and softened by kindness, they will rest. Tomorrow's meals may come or may not, but for tonight, they've had enough to carry on. Let's follow the steam as it curls past the rooftops. It will lead us into the twilight and into another chapter of survival. The fire has died down, but the ash is still warm. In the small back corners of London's poorest dwellings, where chimneys crack and soot clings to everything like a second skin, coal is more than fuel. It is life measured in embers. A family wakes not to light, but to the chill absence of it. Breath fogs in the air as they huddle close, waiting to see if there's enough coal left to spark a morning flame. A child reaches into a bucket and pulls out the last fistful of broken pieces, a mix of soot, cinders, and small black stones. It isn't enough for a fire, not really, but it's what they have. The mother arranges it carefully, like arranging bones in a ritual. She lights a twist of paper and waits. It takes, then fades. She tries again, and again, until finally the glow holds, a thin, flickering hope in the dark. Coal is bought in sacks, measured not by weight, but by what one can carry or afford. There's cheap coal, heavy with stone and little heat, and the good kind, delivered to homes that can pay. The slums get the dust, the broken lumps, the sweepings from carts, and even that is precious. Children scour alleys for leftover coal chips spilled near deliveries. Some sneak to railway yards, hoping to pocket a clump missed by the porters. Others wait near coal sheds, offering to help unload in exchange for whatever sticks to their fingers. These are the coal pickers, small, quiet gatherers in a world built from smoke. In the shared yards, the smell of burning fills the air by mid-morning. Not always coal, sometimes wood, sometimes old rags soaked in something flammable, sometimes even bones. Anything that burns is a blessing. Inside, the hearth is more than a place to cook. It's a shrine of sorts, the one warm spot, the heart of the home. Shoes are dried here. Tea is brewed here. When there's nothing to eat, a pot of water still simmers just to keep the cold from settling too deep into the bones. Soot covers everything. Ceilings darken, curtains gray, children's cheeks bear permanent smudges. Some scrub it off. Others leave it. What's the point? It comes back faster than it can be cleaned. On the walls, candle ends are stuck to window sills with melted wax. They're burned an inch at a time, only when needed. Light is a rationed luxury. People move through rooms in partial shadow, faces lit only by the red whisper of coals. One woman collects candle stubs from gutters after market stalls close. She melts them into a tin and recasts them into one long, crooked stick. It gives off a strange smell, but it burns. That's all that matters. Others make rushlights, dipping dry reeds into leftover animal fat, letting them harden, then storing them in bundles for nightfall. It's a messy, smelly process. But in a world without gaslight, it's the only way to see. A boy sits by the window, carving the bottom of a candle to make it stand. He looks up only when a soft knock comes. His sister enters, carrying a bit of coal in her apron. They smile. No words are needed. The room they live in has no chimney. Smoke escapes through a cracked pane, or not at all. They cough sometimes, the baby especially. But what else is there to do? A warm cough is better than a cold breath. In another tenement, a man blows gently on a coal until it flares. He places a chipped kettle above it, then lays his hands on the heat rising beneath. He stares into the coal like it holds secrets. Maybe it does. Every burn mark on his arms tells of mornings like this one. Candlelight reflects in a small shard of mirror nailed above the hearth. A woman uses it to pluck her eyebrows, not out of vanity, but because it helps her feel human. Beside her, a child leans close to comb her hair in the half-light. They share the mirror, they share the candle, they share the world. In the stairwell, someone climbs upward with a basket of coal lumps, grunting with the weight. Her boots leave dark prints behind. She disappears into a doorway, and the sound of a poker clinking against the grate follows. Evening comes early in the slums, not because of time, but because light runs out. As the sun fades, shutters close, curtains drop, and people gather near whatever heat remains. A circle of children sit around a single flame, playing shadow games on the wall. Their laughter is soft, careful not to disturb the ones resting nearby. Their shadows grow large and wild, giants born of candle ends. Elsewhere, a man reads aloud by firelight, slowly, syllable by syllable. The book is borrowed, the print small, but the children lean in close, hanging on every word. The room is quiet, except for the sound of turning pages and the occasional hiss of settling coal. Someone taps gently on the wall, 3 knocks, then 2. It's the neighbor. Their fire's gone out. Without speaking, a girl carries over a glowing ember wrapped in tin. She returns with the same silence. When a baby is born in the slums, a fire is kept for 3 days. Even if there's no food, even if there's nothing to burn, a fire must be lit. It's tradition. It's protection. It's belief in warmth as a kind of magic. So neighbors share what they have. A stump of wax, a coal fragment, a bit of cloth to burn. The poorest corners are the darkest. Some families live weeks without light. But even there, someone always manages to find a match, one spark, enough to light one wick, enough to light the next. And so, from coal dust and candle ends, a whole city is held together. It's not the grand hearths in townhouses or the blazing ranges in kitchens above. It's these, the slow-burning, hissing, whispering coals of the forgotten homes that keep the city alive from underneath. And when the fires die down again tonight, when the last candle gutters in the draft and the shadows grow soft and long, the slums will settle into their hush. Not silence, not really. Just the quiet of breath and soot and sleep. We'll leave them here for now, curled beside fading embers, their faces still lit by the memory of warmth. There are more places to see, more corners where soft survival burns low but steady. Let's follow that faint glow onward. By the time midday fog settles against the brick, the steam from washtubs has already begun to rise. In the courtyards and alleys between buildings, where windows stare down like half-lidded eyes, it is laundry day. Not because it's scheduled, but because it has to be. Clothes don't wait. Neither do lice. Behind one tenement wall, 3 sisters crouch near a basin filled with gray water. Their fingers are red from scrubbing, their faces blank with focus. Around them, shirts hang like tired ghosts, arms outstretched to dry. The air is thick with the smell of soap, damp wool, and smoke. There's no luxury in cleanliness here. Clean doesn't mean spotless. It means survivable. It means a blanket washed before the baby sleeps in it. A scarf boiled so it doesn't itch. A dress rinsed one more time to chase away the sourness of weeks-old wear. It means dignity carved out by hand. Lice are part of life in the slums. They creep through seams, curl in collars, cling to the underside of hats. Children scratch until they bleed. Mothers comb and sigh. Tea tree oil doesn't exist here, only vinegar, hot water, and prayers. And yet, there's no shame in it. Lice are like fog or soot, ever present, never personal. What matters isn't whether they come, but whether you try to chase them out. At a shared washhouse, lines form before dawn. Women carry bundles wrapped in old tablecloths, buckets balanced on hips. Some chat, most don't. They know the rhythm by now. Find a tap, find a tub, boil, scrub, rinse, wring, hang, wait. In one corner, a girl no older than 12 kneels beside a fire grate, heating water one kettle at a time. Her arms tremble with each pour, but she doesn't stop. Her mother has a fever upstairs, and there's only one blanket in the house. It must be cleaned, not for comfort, but for survival. She rubs it down with salt and ash. The soap was used up last week, but the cloth still smells better afterward. Clean is relative. Back in their room, a family waits for socks to dry. A pair has been hung on the string across the hearth, turning stiff in the heat. One child stares at them like they're bakery cakes. He knows he'll be allowed to wear them when they're dry, maybe just for today. Nearby, a boy scrubs his shirt collar with a rock. His fingernails are black. His face is streaked from effort. He grits his teeth and keeps going. He's not trying to look good, just trying to not be sent home from school again. In basins across the block, underpants are soaked beside kerchiefs and cloth diapers. There's no embarrassment. Modesty here is practical, not shy. Everyone washes what they must. Everyone sees what they must. Life isn't filtered. At the bottom of one yard, a woman kneels with her back to the wall. She sings softly as she scrubs, not for anyone to hear, but because the rhythm helps. Her hands move with the beat. Around her, children run barefoot between puddles. Steam curls from nearby kettles. Laundry flutters like faded flags of endurance. Even lice have their patterns. Once a week, heads are checked. Girls kneel beside their mothers, the tooth of the comb dragging slow and sharp. Boys wince as vinegar is rubbed in behind their ears. The whole process is done without ceremony, like brushing teeth or bandaging a scrape. It's just another task. Occasionally, a neighbor lends her comb. Another shares her leftover soap shavings. A grandmother gifts a small pot of rendered fat that helps smooth the cloth when nothing else is available. These are the quiet offerings of slum life. Not grand gestures, but small, daily mercies. And then, there are the victories. The woman who finally removes a week-old stain from her apron. The boy whose shirt no longer smells of fish. The girl whose lice comb comes out clean for the first time in months. These are wins worth celebrating, even if no one claps, even if no one sees. A mother holds up a nightgown to the light, thin as gauze, threadbare, but whole. She nods once to herself and hangs it on the line. The steam catches the sun, if only briefly. For a second, the cloth looks golden. Water is reused whenever it can be. Washing from socks becomes rinse water for coats. Water from coats is poured over the floor to settle the dust. Nothing is wasted. Even water gets tired in the slums. A child sits cross-legged near a puddle, poking at a trail of bubbles with a stick. He makes up a story about each one, which is a soldier, which is a captain, which one will win the imaginary war. It's just laundry water, but to him, it's a river of dreams. A teenage girl irons her skirt with a hot stone wrapped in cloth. She smooths it across her knees and hums a waltz she's only heard once, long ago through the wall from a neighbor's gramophone. She doesn't know the words, only the rhythm. It helps her stand straighter. Inside, lice combs dry near the fire. One has broken teeth. Another has been wrapped in string to keep it from splitting. They are lined up beside a cracked mirror and a small jar of saved grease. A girl dabs a bit on her palms and smooths her hair into place. Clean doesn't always mean bright. In the slums, clean means controlled. It means the moment is yours. The laces tied, the collar scrubbed, the hair parted. It means no one can say you didn't try. And trying, here, is everything. There are no wardrobes. Clothes hang from nails or lie folded in boxes. Children know which pair of socks is theirs by the stitching or the tear near the toe. They swap sometimes when someone's are wetter than someone else's. No one fights about it. They just nod. On Sundays, those with the strength hang their best shirt in the window, a silent message to the world. We are still upright. We are still here. In the evenings, the yard's quiet. Clothes remain strung from post to post, swaying slightly in the breeze. A shirt flaps like a signal. A nightgown twists like a flag. Beneath them, soap buckets are emptied. Steam fades. And at the end of a long wash day, feet are sore, backs are bent, but heads are higher. Because the comb came through clean. Because the baby's blanket is dry. Because the collar is white enough to wear to church. Because today, something got done. Something changed. If only for an hour. And as the lamps flicker on and the last bit of water is poured onto stone, a kind of peace settles. Not the peace of silence, but the peace of completion. They've scrubbed what they could. They've hung what they had. And tomorrow, they'll wear it with pride. Even if it wrinkles, even if it smells faintly of vinegar, even if it gets soiled again within the hour, because it was made ready with hands that tried. And here, in the deepest corners of the city, that trying, over and over, is a quiet revolution. Let's leave the soap-streaked yards behind now and follow the steam that rises from rooftops. It will take us somewhere else, into the narrow, cluttered lanes where small trades and whispers build the pulse of the poor. Not far from the wash yards, past a shuttered bakery and a row of iron railings eaten with rust, sits a narrow shop with dusty windows. No one calls it by name, but everyone knows it, the pawnbrokers. It's not a place of shame, not here. It's a revolving door for things that breathe with stories, boots that walked a dozen jobs, a ladle passed down 3 mothers, a coat that remembers both weddings and funerals. In this neighborhood, almost everyone's belongings have seen the inside of that shop at least once. Each Monday, a quiet procession begins. Women with shawls tied tight, men with stiff backs, children carrying wrapped bundles. They wait without speaking. Inside, a bell above the door chimes like it's tired too. The pawn counter is always the same, high, wooden, worn smooth where elbows lean. Behind it, shelves hold stacks of parcels, neatly labeled, carefully arranged. Watches, combs, candlesticks, pocket Bibles, Sunday boots, dolls, some wrapped in newspaper, some not wrapped at all. One by one, people approach. A woman lays down a child's coat. "He's outgrown it," she says. She doesn't mention that she hopes to buy it back next winter, when another baby might wear it. A boy offers a tin whistle. "Still plays," he says. The pawnbroker nods. He doesn't test it. He's heard it before. A man unwraps a set of razors, carefully oiled. "I'll be back for them," he says, more to himself than to anyone else. The broker gives him a slip. The man folds it like a promise and walks away. No one lingers. Some pawn for food, some for medicine, some just to keep the landlord quiet for one more day. Every item left behind is a temporary goodbye, not a loss. At least, that's what they tell themselves. On Saturdays, a second line forms, the redeeming line. People come back for what they left if they can. Not always the same people, not always the same week. But there is joy in that line. Soft, quiet joy. The joy of getting something back. Children press their faces to the glass, hoping to see what's still there. Some spot a familiar pot or their mother's brooch. Some find nothing, already sold. That's how it goes. Not far from the pawn shop is a stall that sells sweets, penny candies, though a penny doesn't stretch far. The man who runs it wears a velvet coat that's worn down to thread and carries a tin scoop like it's made of gold. He doesn't smile much, but he doesn't scowl either. He lets the children take their time, pointing to barley sugar, humbugs, licorice ribbons, lemon drops, all lined in jars that glow like stained glass when the light hits just right. Some kids come with real pennies, some with buttons or marbles or bits of chalk, some with nothing but hope. He gives them what he can, sometimes half a sweet. sometimes just the smell from the jar. "Next time," he says, and they nod like he's made a promise. Two girls share a peppermint and make it last by passing it back and forth, careful not to bite. One boy wraps a candy in tissue to bring home to his sister. He doesn't eat it, not even a nibble. He just carries it like treasure. The candy isn't just sugar, it's permission to smile, to have something bright, something small and sweet in a world of salt and soot. Back near the alley, another kind of trade takes place, not with money, but with barter. A woman offers sewing in exchange for bread. A boy runs errands for a sliver of soap. A man repairs handles on a broken chair and receives 3 boiled potatoes wrapped in cloth. Everyone has something. Everyone needs something. The market is made not with stalls, but with glances and quiet words, and favors returned days later. One girl writes letters for neighbors who can't read. She copies the words carefully, folding the paper into squares and sealing them with pins. For this, she's given tea leaves used twice, still good for one more steep. A man makes toys from scraps, wooden birds, twine puppets, matchstick dolls. He sells them for far less than they're worth. Not because he has to, but because he wants to see a child's face light up for once. Not all the trades are equal. Some give more than they get, but no one keeps track too closely. What matters is the rhythm, the give and take that keeps the community from sinking. Near the edge of the street, a girl with no shoes tries to swap a scarf for a pair. The vendor shakes his head. She shrugs, not angry, and walks away, humming. She'll try again next week. Inside one tenement, a mother unpacks her gains from the day. A half-used candle, 2 slices of dried bread, a packet of mustard, and 3 buttons. She smiles as she lays them out. Not because it's enough, but because it's something. She calls her children. They sit on the floor. She lights the candle. They share the bread. The mustard makes their eyes water, but they laugh. The buttons? Those will go on the coat that's missing its fasteners. One small thing fixed. And that is how victories look in places like this. Tiny flickering wins wrapped in wax paper and stitched into borrowed pockets. A new mother trades a hand-sewn bonnet for a jar of broth. A widower lends his stool to a neighbor with bad legs. A boy gives up half his supper to a stranger on the steps, and his sister doesn't scold him. She simply says, "You'll be warmer for it." Because sometimes giving is more filling than eating. In another flat, a grandmother ties a string of beads around a girl's wrist. Not real beads, just shaped clay, painted with coal and soot. But they shine in the candlelight. The girl beams like a queen. When winter deepens, these trades become tighter. Scarves for firewood, hair ribbons for medicine, a pot of jam for a night of shelter. Everyone sacrifices something, but no one walks away with nothing. They give because they remember what it's like to be without, and they receive because someone, somewhere, once gave to them. And so the week unfolds in quiet exchanges. A glove here, a spool of thread there, a pencil stub for a story, a laugh shared for no reason at all. Poverty doesn't erase kindness. It often sharpens it. At night, beneath threadbare blankets, people count what they kept, not in gold, but in small comforts. A comb returned, a button sewn, a treat saved, a favor done. And though the pawnbrokers still tally their slips, and the candy jars still empty, what matters most never leaves the shelves. Hope, after all, cannot be pawned. And joy, especially the kind that comes for a penny or a pinch of sugar, doesn't expire. Let's carry that sweetness forward now, past the lantern-lit lanes and into the hush of another room, where night falls gently and something deeper waits. There are 2 things no home can do without in the slums: something to lay a child in, and something to lay a body in. Sometimes they are the same box. It's morning again. The mist hangs low, curling along the cobblestones and under windowsills. Somewhere, a baby is crying. Somewhere else, someone is not. A midwife walks briskly along the lane, her apron already spotted. She carries a wrapped bundle of linens, a chipped bottle of carbolic, and the kind of hands that have held both beginnings and endings. She doesn't knock when she arrives, just pushes the door open and steps in. Inside, a woman groans. Her breath is shallow, her hair damp with sweat. Around her, the room is still. A neighbor watches the other children, whispering them quiet. The midwife kneels and begins. There are no hospitals here, not unless things go badly, and even then, the walk is often too long. Most babies are born where their families live, into rooms that have seen everything before: births, fevers, laughter, fights, death. The baby comes quickly. A boy. No screams. Just a ragged cry that turns into a gurgle. He is wiped clean and wrapped in flannel. The mother doesn't speak. She reaches out and touches his cheek once, then closes her eyes. The neighbor breathes again. They name him Tom, because it was his grandfather's name. No one writes it down. No certificate is made, but everyone remembers. In another room, a cradle rocks. It's homemade. 4 legs, a basin of wood, a few scratches from a time when it belonged to someone else. The blanket is patched. The mattress is straw, but it holds a baby just the same. Mothers whisper lullabies, half-remembered tunes passed down in milk and tired arms. They hum while stirring porridge, while folding nappies, while leaning over children with soft murmurs of, "Shh, now, love." There are babies everywhere. New ones, small ones, weak ones, loud ones. Some wrapped in shawls, some carried in baskets, some laid gently into drawers lined with cloth. In slums, everything becomes a cradle if it must. And then, there is the other side of that soft line. The carpenter works in a shed behind the alley. His hands are thick, his face unreadable. He doesn't ask questions. He makes boxes, small ones mostly, sometimes plain, sometimes with handles, sometimes with a cross carved in, most times not. Children die often here, from fevers, from coughs, from things that don't have names, just symptoms. One day they're warm, and the next they're gone. And the room is suddenly very, very quiet. The first sound after loss is always cloth. Someone pulling a blanket over the body. Then the scrape of a chair as someone stands. Then silence again. Neighbors come, not with casseroles or flowers, but with matches, with sugar, with arms to carry the other children away for a while. No one talks too loudly. No one says too much. But the room fills with presence. A baby is laid in the small box, not dressed up, just cleaned, a ribbon in the hair if they have one, a handkerchief tucked beneath the chin, sometimes a toy, sometimes just a feather. The lid is closed gently, always gently. A man with a cart arrives. He waits quietly. No rush. The box is lifted, carried down the steps. No procession. Just 1 or 2 walking behind, and the rest watching from windows, their eyes dry but soft. The coffin goes to the cemetery. Sometimes there's a grave waiting, sometimes not. A shared plot, more often than not. No headstone, just a memory held in someone's chest. But the memory stays. In a room 2 streets over, a woman leans over her child and says her name 3 times, whispering it like a spell. She says it to remind the walls, to remind the bed, to remind the blanket that used to hold her. She rocks slowly, back and forth. Not because there is anyone to rock, but because the motion keeps her upright. The next day, she washes the sheets, sweeps the floor, stirs the tea. She tells her other children not to be too loud, but she doesn't scold them if they are. A few weeks later, someone knocks on the door and hands in a rattle. "For the next one," they say, and she nods. Because there is always a next one. Because life, like laundry, keeps returning. Cradles get reused. Sometimes the next baby comes too soon and the grief has barely cooled. Mothers rock again, holding new warmth, still remembering the cold. And yet, there are celebrations too. A boy takes his first step across cracked floorboards, greeted by cheers as if he's crossed a ballroom. A girl gets her first tooth and bites into a piece of crust with wild delight. A baby laughs for the first time and makes 3 women cry. These are the victories no one else sees. But here, in the heart of the slums, they are miracles. A child survives a winter. A mother survives childbirth. A baby sleeps through the night. These are not small things, not here. Grief and joy are neighbors in these narrow rooms. They borrow from each other often, sometimes on the same day. At the foot of a shared bed, a toddler plays with a spoon while her sister sleeps beside her. Their brother watches, humming softly. He doesn't remember the sibling they lost. He was too small, but he knows not to say their name too loudly, only when it's quiet. One mother stitches a name into a quilt, just initials, but she knows what they mean. She adds them to the edge where the fabric curls. She doesn't say why. Another finds a pair of baby shoes beneath the stove. She holds them for a while, then sets them on the windowsill to warm in the sun. They'll be needed again, because life doesn't stop. It pauses sometimes. It bows its head, but it doesn't stop. The babies come, the boxes come, but so do the birthdays, sometimes just marked with a song and a boiled sweet, sometimes only with a whispered, "You're still here." But they're marked. At night, mothers touch their children's foreheads, feeling for fever. Fathers check windows for drafts. Blankets are shared, feet are tucked. A baby stirs, and 3 people wake. That's the shape of love in small rooms. And when one day ends and another begins, when the crying stops and the candle burns low, there's peace. Not always happiness, but peace. A cradle rocks, a box is carried, and the people remain. They carry both. They always have. Let's walk softly now, away from this room. The floor creaks beneath our feet. We pass the door without closing it. Someone inside is humming again. We'll follow that melody into the dusk, into the places where work waits and wages are never enough. And there's a smell in the alleys this morning, not foul exactly, but sharp. Sour wool, wet paper, damp brick, old soap and ash. The scent of work being done, the kind that leaves your fingernails gray and your back bent for a few pennies, if you're lucky. Someone is sorting rags. You can hear it in the slow rustle of cloth against cloth. You can feel it in the dust that lifts into the air and settles into the cracks of your skin. You can almost taste it. Rag picking is not a trade. It's a necessity, one that welcomes those too young, too old, or too tired for anything else. At the edge of a cobbled yard, an old man sits cross-legged, a pile of tattered clothing before him. He inspects each piece like a scholar with ancient texts, eyes narrowing, fingers testing the fibers. Some pieces are too far gone, riddled with lice or stiff with old glue. Others are torn but salvageable, cut into strips, rewoven, sold to paper mills or mattress makers. Children help. Their hands are small and nimble. A girl separates buttons into one tin, pins into another. Her brother untangles lace from a dress so stained its original color is a mystery. Their mother oversees them silently, her fingers blistered, her lips chapped. Rags are sorted by use, not by origin. Wool here, cotton there. Anything with metal is clipped. Everything has value if you know how to look. Even the dirtiest cloth can be boiled down into pulp or stuffing. And even if it can't, it can be sold to someone who will pretend it can. The work is slow, but not without pride. In one corner, a woman smooths a dress onto her lap, not to wear, but to mend. She patches a tear with thread made from unwound socks. She'll sell it tomorrow to a stall vendor who resells clothing to servants. It won't bring much, but maybe enough for tea. Behind her, a child coughs and coughs. She rubs his back with one hand, still stitching with the other. That's how it goes. You do what you must. Rag yards fill with colorless colors, browns, grays, faded blacks, stained whites. Occasionally, a red ribbon or blue hem appears like a burst of memory from some better place. People stop to admire it for a second, then move on. The streets are quieter today, not because people are resting, but because they're waiting. Rent day is coming. Every week, the rent collector makes his rounds. He doesn't shout, he doesn't threaten. He just walks, ledger under his arm, knocking softly on every door. Families prepare in silence. Coins are gathered from under mattresses, from jars behind bricks, from hems unstitched and restitched again. Some sell their only spoon. Some pawn their boots and walk barefoot for days. Others send their children out early to stay with a neighbor, just in case. If the rent isn't paid, you might not be thrown out, not right away, but your name is marked, and the list grows longer. And one day, the list turns into action. And so, the week before rent day is filled with frantic activity. Ragpickers sort faster. Washerwomen take on one more load. Children scour alleyways for nails, bones, glass, anything that might be sold by the ounce. One boy finds a bit of copper wire behind the yard and brings it home like treasure. His father nods and adds it to a tin. That wire, melted and sold, might be the difference between staying and being put out. A woman offers her wedding ring for trade. The pawnbroker eyes it briefly, then passes her a few coins. She walks out without looking back. In another room, a man takes apart a broken chair and sells the wood as kindling. The chair was his father's. He hesitates, then throws the last leg into the fire. Sentiment doesn't fill ledgers. But not everyone manages, and when the collector comes, he comes quietly but firmly. A knock, a pause, another knock. Inside, a family freezes. The mother meets the man's eyes, shakes her head once, slowly. No lies, just the truth. He nods, writes something, moves on. That night, they won't sleep. They'll wait to see if the landlord sends the bailiff, or the inspector, or worse. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes everything does. And yet, somehow, most find a way to pay. A girl sells flowers on a bridge all afternoon, just enough to cover the missing shilling. A boy shines shoes with spit and rag, running from one pub to another until dusk. A grandmother offers the only comb in the house to the neighbor's child, who needs to look neat for work. In return, she receives a pot of dripping, enough for one more day of meals. These aren't jobs, they're salvations. Not far from the rag yard, a woman weaves scraps into rugs. Her loom is handmade, her fingers fast. The rugs aren't fancy, but they're thick, and shopkeepers buy them to cover cold floors. She teaches her daughters the patterns, not because it's art, but because it might keep them fed. A man carves walking sticks from broken broom handles. He paints them with soot and polish, carves names into the sides. They sell for pennies, but those pennies are sharp. They cut through the hunger for another day. Children run errands for neighbors, milk fetched, jars returned, letters posted. In exchange, they get biscuits, leftover stew, or bits of soap. These exchanges fill bellies and bathe cheeks. It's a world built on threads, literal and figurative, threads of cloth, threads of trust, threads of trade. If one breaks, the others strain harder to hold. On rent night, candles burn longer than usual. Families sit close, quiet. Coins are counted again, even when there's nothing new. Some cry, some hum. Most just wait. In the hallway, footsteps echo. The collector again. Or maybe just a neighbor. It's hard to tell. One mother has nothing left to sell, nothing left to give. But she sits beside her sleeping child and whispers, "We'll manage." We always do. Because they do. Because they must. And because in a city that tries every week to take more than it gives, The poor find a way to stitch together another week, another room, another breath. Rags become paper, scraps become rugs, bits become meals, debt becomes part of the wallpaper, and life somehow goes on. Let's leave the rag yard now. Step past the stacked bolts of cloth, the empty boots, the ledger books. There's still more to see. Softer corners, gentler hours. A place where laughter, however fleeting, still dares to live. It begins with a whistle, short, sharp, and familiar. Somewhere down the alley, someone has started a game. Then comes the shuffle of feet, bare, muddy, mismatched shoes, children gathering from all sides like birds answering a secret call. There are no parks here, no proper playgrounds, no swings, no fields. But still, the games begin. They play in courtyards, in stairwells, in the thin light between laundry lines. They race in the narrow lanes, duck behind barrels, use chalk to draw on brick. Their world is made of broken pavement and soot-stained stone, and yet in their eyes, it becomes castles, forests, oceans. One girl draws a circle in the dirt. Inside it, buttons, stones, and string. A treasure map. Her rules are complicated, made up as she goes. The other children nod solemnly, accepting the terms. Then they dive in, yelling, laughing, pretending. The walls echo with joy. This is not joy despite the world. This is joy because of it. Because when everything is bleak, play becomes power. It becomes the only thing that isn't owned by landlords or measured in shillings. Children hop from tile to tile, never touching the cracks. Lava, they say. One misstep and you're gone. Another pretends to be a chimney sweep, face already streaked with real soot, climbing drain pipes and calling out, "Clean!" like a prince of the rooftops. They've all heard the tales of children who vanished into chimneys, of ghosts that whisper in cellars, of songs sung backwards to raise the dead, and so they whisper them again, not to frighten, but to feel brave. Ghost stories live long in the slums. They're passed like heirlooms from one child to the next. The woman in black who appears if you say her name 3 times near the well. The child who still cries from beneath the stairs. The man with coal eyes who comes if you steal bread after midnight. They tell them in corners, under blankets, beside the fire. They tell them to each other and to themselves, and in doing so, they name their fears and then laugh them away. There is a boy who says he saw a ghost once in the old wash-house, pale and thin, whispering in rhyme. He swears he didn't run, only walked away quickly. The others nod. They add to the story. A ghost who leaves behind coins, if you're polite. A ghost who hums lullabies. A ghost who once danced a waltz alone, waiting for her lover to return. The stories change every time. That's part of the magic. They are passed down with the same care as family recipes, and sometimes with even more embellishment. Ghosts and games mingle easily. One child pretends to be dead so well that his brother screams. A minute later, they're both laughing again, rolling in the dirt. Their mother scolds them lightly, but her eyes soften. She remembers being young too. In the slums, you grow up fast. But in these hours, between work and meals, between chores and sleep, childhood reclaims a corner of the day. There are skipping ropes made from old clothesline, balls fashioned from bundled rags and tied with twine, dolls stitched from leftover scraps, eyes made of mismatched buttons, and songs, so many songs, not the ones sung in churches or ballrooms. These are songs made for the gutter, born of cheek and rhythm and repetition. They're sung in rounds with slaps of hands on knees and claps on backs. They're loud, messy, and often rude, exactly as they should be. One goes, "Miss Molly lost her stocking. The cat ran up the stair. The mice all played the fiddle and danced around her chair." Another is just a chant, meaningless and catchy. "Fee-fi, chimney-pie, to kick the soot and blink an eye." They rhyme coal with soul, dirt with skirt, and make verses out of whatever happened that week. A man falling into a cart, a dog stealing a pie, the smell from the tannery reaching all the way to church. Sometimes the songs are protests in disguise. One girl sings of a mayor who taxed sugar so high the children had to eat dirt. Another sings of a landlord who burst from eating gold. The grown-ups pretend not to listen, but some hum along. And when someone finds a real instrument, a mouth harp, a broken fiddle, a whistle made from bone, it becomes a celebration. Music rises between the bricks like birdsong, and for a moment, the alley becomes a ballroom. Evenings bring a different kind of play. The light fades, the laughter quiets. Games grow smaller, more secret. A group of children crouches in a corner, trading matchbox treasures, marbles, pins, beetle shells, a tooth, a piece of glass so smooth it looks like sea. These are their riches. Each object has a name, a history, a charm. One boy swears his beetle shell keeps away bad dreams. A girl says her marble came from a prince. No one doubts them. That's the rule. They don't play to win, they play to stay alive, not just in body, but in spirit. A child who can imagine a button is a coin or a puddle is a sea has more power than anyone with a bank account. They don't need money. They have stories. There are friendships formed that will never break. Two boys swear a blood pact, a pinprick each, fingers pressed. They will be brothers forever, even if one moves away, even if one falls ill. That's what they say. A girl leads her younger sister through a pretend forest made of laundry and crates. She speaks in a whisper, making up dangers. Wolves behind the bins, giants under the porch. They tiptoe carefully. She never lets go of her hand. The games continue even in the cold. Fingers red, breath visible, but still, they play. The floor is icy. The air stings. But the world is theirs for one more hour. In a stairwell, a group of children light a candle and take turns telling stories. One by one, faces glow in the flicker. Their eyes widen. They laugh, gasp, whisper. When the candle burns low, they cup their hands around it like it's holy. Because it is. It's warmth. It's light. It's time held still. Eventually, someone calls from a window. It's time. Time for tea, or work, or sleep. One by one, the children drift away. The songs fade. The laughter echoes once, then disappears into brick. But the games don't end. They just go quiet. Like ghosts themselves, they wait. They'll return tomorrow. They always do. Because where there are children, there will be stories. Where there is dirt, there will be castles. And where there is silence, someone will hum. Let's follow that hum now, past the shuttered windows and into the flickering warmth of a shared supper. Night has returned. It begins not with darkness, but with quiet. A quiet that builds slowly, like fog crawling over cobblestones. The clatter of wheels softens. Footsteps grow fewer. Windows close, doors bolt, curtains fall. The city does not sleep all at once. It drowses, sighs, and surrenders in slow pieces. In the slums, night is not a full stop. It is a long breath, drawn in over hours. Inside one narrow room, a candle flickers on a crate. It is the only light. Everything else lies in deep shade. Bundles of cloth, hunched shoulders, bowls stacked from supper. The flame bends to the draft, then steadies. It glows like a memory. A girl watches it without blinking. Her knees are pulled to her chest. Her fingers trace invisible patterns on the floorboards. She is not thinking of anything, and yet thinking of everything. The day just passed, the one waiting beyond sleep, and the strange, safe feeling of being tucked between them. Her brother sleeps beside her. He always sleeps first. One breath, two, and he's gone, off to some dream of sweets and spinning tops. She will follow soon, but not yet. For now, she listens. The sounds of the slums at night are different. No shouting now, no hammering, no boiling kettles, just the hush of lives winding down. A cough from 2 doors down. A creak in the ceiling beam, the soft drip of rain somewhere far off, the rhythmic breath of people who have survived another day. The mother leans against the wall. Her hands rest in her lap, palms up. Her face is unreadable, not tired, not awake, simply suspended. She stares at the flame, too. She will blow it out soon, but not just yet. There is comfort in that little light. Across the courtyard, another candle burns. Another family. Another flame. The rooms are mirrors of each other. Same wood, same air, same prayers offered to no one in particular. And below, in the street, a figure passes, a man with a lantern. He does not stop, but he glances up at the windows. He sees the lights. He nods once, barely perceptible. The night watch, still walking. There is a strange unity to the slums at night. By day, each family fights their own battles, but by night, they become one organism, breathing in unison, wrapped in patchwork quilts, sharing silence the way they share coal and song and scraps of bread. In one flat, a grandmother tucks a shawl around her legs. She stirs tea with a spoon too bent to spin, but she does it anyway. The tea is weak, barely tinted, but it's warm. She sips slowly, savoring each swallow like a hymn. She thinks of her husband, gone these 10 years. She hears his voice in the creak of the chair. She smiles. Beside her, a child sleeps on a pile of folded skirts. The skirts are hers, once worn to church, now used to cushion a dreaming head. She strokes his hair without waking him. Her fingers know the rhythm. A baby cries somewhere, then quiets. Somewhere else, a match is struck. A murmur, a lullaby. The city exhales, and the candles keep burning. These are not the tall, white, perfect candles of rich homes. These are end pieces, nubs, drippings melted into new forms. They are lopsided, stubby, stubborn. But they give light, and that is enough. People count them like coins. One candle for washing, one for sewing, one for meals, one for night. When they are gone, there are no more. So each flicker is watched like treasure. A boy turns a page of a tattered book by candlelight. The words are faded, the story is half missing, but he reads it anyway, mouthing each syllable, guessing at the gaps. He has read this book 10 times, but it changes every night. That's how stories work. They shift depending on what the day has left behind. Next door, a woman writes a letter by memory. She has no ink, no paper, no recipient. But she mouths the words as she traces them into the air. Dear sister. Her sister died years ago. Still, she writes, because some things are not meant for sending, only for saying. And so the candle burns. The wax pools, leans, cools. A breeze touches the flame. It leans, straightens, refuses to go out. This is how people sleep here, slowly, in stages. One body curls, then another. One cough quiets, then the next. Children twist, tangle, flatten. Parents shift on crates or folded coats. No one complains. They are past complaining. This is just the shape of sleep. There are dreams here, rich ones. Dreams of food, of fields, of freedom. Dreams of sisters not lost. Dreams of warmth that doesn't come from coal or candles, but from sunlit rooms and feather beds and quiet mornings. Some dream of escape. Some dream of staying. Some dream without knowing they dream. They just drift in the dark, held by the walls they cannot see. But not everyone sleeps. Some stay up. Not because they must, but because they want to hold a little more of the day. A girl braids her hair slowly, listening to the rhythm of her own hands. A man oils his boots, one swipe at a time, even though he has nowhere to go tomorrow. A boy listens for the ghost his cousins swore lived in the cellar. He hears only rats, but he smiles anyway. And some lie still, awake, staring into the candle, watching it as though it might blink back. They wonder things. What might tomorrow bring? Will there be tea? Will the coal last? Will Ma feel better? Will Da find work? They wonder how much wax remains, not just in the candle, in themselves. How much longer can they burn? But they don't ask aloud. The city, after all, answers slowly, and slowly it changes. The candle lowers, the flame sinks into the stub. Shadows lengthen, then shorten, then fade. Someone breathes deep and finally lets go. One by one, the rooms go dark, not all at once, but gently, like a lullaby reaching its final note. A door creaks open. A cat slips in. A child stirs and is kissed back to stillness. A man draws his coat tighter. A woman folds her hands and prays, not with words, just intention. That is enough. And now, the last candle burns low. It is alone on a windowsill, its flame steady despite the air. It has seen the day, the births, the fights, the laughter, the work, the trade, the soup, the scars, the games, the ghosts, the grief. It has witnessed everything and judged nothing. It simply glows. And when it goes out, not suddenly, but as gently as a sigh, the world is not lost. It has only quieted. There is no fear in this dark, only peace. Because morning will come. It always does. And with it, another match struck, another flame, another life continuing, quietly, bravely, again. And until then, let them sleep. Let the slums breathe. Let the walls rest. Let the floor hold still. Let the people who fought through every hour lie soft in the arms of night. Because they have earned this. Every minute, every flicker, every sigh. Let us leave them now, not in sorrow, but in reverence. Let us carry their stories softly into our own quiet hours. Let us walk gently back through time and space, across fading rooftops and silent steps, back to our beds, back to ourselves, back to stillness. Good night.